My name is Bill Lukash, and I'm a planner at the City of Omaha who focuses on environmental solutions. Over the last 50 years, Omaha changed from a blue-collar packing plant town to a white-collar technology town. Because of that, the residents' perception of their town changed. They wanted redevelopment that encouraged new types of businesses, that would recruit a new kind of workforce, and that would improve their quality of life. Starting about 20 years ago, brownfield assessments and cleanup began to play an important part in the redevelopment process. Some of our biggest challenges became our biggest successes, and I'd like to share those stories with you. For this presentation, I've broken our redevelopment efforts into 3 categories. Let's start with economic redevelopment. Over time, Omaha's riverfront eventually became inaccessible to the public. It was lined with industrial properties ranging from railroad yards and warehouses to salvage yards and chemical storage tank farms. For nearly 100 years, lead-laced dust clouds emitted from smelting operations in this area covered the eastern third of the city. This area, known as NoDo, or North Downtown, was the first thing visitors arriving by plane saw of Omaha. It was an ugly reminder that change was needed. A back to the river effort began, and NoDo was targeted for redevelopment. The city received a brownfield pilot grant from the United States Environmental Protection Agency. The grant was used to assess 3 sites in NoDo. This grant was one of many catalysts for dramatic change. The area was redeveloped and is now Omaha's event hub. Over the past 10 years, a new municipal arena and convention center, ballpark, pedestrian bridge, green space, retail space, residential buildings, and recreational areas were constructed. Events like the United States Olympic Swim Team Trials and the College World Series bring about $30 million to the community each time they are held. Over the last 3 years, these events have generated about $150 million. These facilities have brought tremendous economic impact to Omaha. Redevelopment has also spilled over into downtown Omaha as well. Old buildings are being repurposed and new buildings are being constructed. The building in the bottom right-hand corner is a hotel that will be built on another former brownfield site. Now we'll take a look at a brownfield site that had a different but no less significant impact on the community. The Wilson Packing Plant was located in South Omaha. For those of you who may not know, at one point about 60 years ago, Omaha was the world's largest meatpacking town. According to Wikipedia, the packing plant opened in 1890 and closed in 1976. I have been told that after closing, the site was used for gang initiations and little else. An historic recordation was conducted prior to the building's demolition. The metal and brick was salvaged. Even the concrete was reused. The site was initially redeveloped as an industrial park, but the Salvation Army and the city leaders had another idea. After entering a competitive application process, Omaha was selected as the location for the 7th Salvation Army Kroc Center. In addition to what is presented on the slide, there are some additional facts that might be of interest to you. It was the 7th Kroc Center in the nation. There will only be 27. One important reason the Salvation Army chose Omaha was because the site was ready for redevelopment. Programs offered at the Kroc Center cover nearly every aspect of life, including financial planning classes, the arts, and physical fitness and healthy living education. The number of social outreach programs offered to the community through the Kroc Center is impressive. Our last examples show our efforts to improve environmental health. Omaha receives Community Development Block Grant, Home, and other funds from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for use in community redevelopment activities. Most of the funds go into the Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy Areas, or NRSAs. All of our federally funded projects undergo an environmental review under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, process. One key part of our environmental review regulations is 24 CFR Part 58.5 I-2. This particular regulation is the nexus between community health, brownfields, and our funds. At this time, we have 3 priority neighborhoods in the North Omaha Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy area. The target areas shift within the NRSAs over time. When I started with the city 5 years ago, one of the first things I noticed were the many brownfields in these areas. It appeared to me that many of our redevelopment activities were slowed down by the discovery of environmental problems after the project began. We decided that an inventory of brownfields would help us become more efficient through advanced planning. The Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality provided a Title 128A grant to help us develop inventories for these areas. Let me change course for a moment to give you a short profile of where these sites are located. I believe we first think of housing and jobs as being the keys to improving quality of life, and that may be fair, but far too often we forget about health. In my opinion, an essential piece of the puzzle to revitalizing these areas is improving the environmental health of the residents. Now, armed with our inventories and target neighborhoods, we assess and clean up sites well in advance of redevelopment, long before construction is ready to begin. The city uses many different funding sources to assess and clean up these sites. The cost of assessment and cleanup and the redevelopment timetable drive our funding decisions. Using our own funds is the quickest way to achieve site cleanup, and so that is typically what we choose to do. But we also work with state and federal agencies to achieve our goals. Sometimes, even with advanced planning, strange things pop up. The Omaha Housing Authority operated Pleasant View for over 50 years. From what I've been told, the housing conditions were poor and gang-related activity made the area unsafe. The facility was shut down in 2008 and demolished soon after that. In 2012, the Omaha Housing Authority decided to sell the land to a private developer. Under HUD regulations, an environmental review was required before the land could be sold. As part of that review, Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental site assessments were prepared. Through the investigations, acrolein was discovered at the site. A second investigation of the site is being funded by the Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality's Title 128A grant program. The second study is being conducted to verify the results of the first one, but it also expands the study area. Several areas also contain soil with high lead concentrations that required cleanup. If the second study confirms the results of the first one, then liners will be used to mitigate soil gas vapor intrusion. Omaha is in Radon Zone 1, so the liners will also act as part of the passive or active radon mitigation system for all future residential construction at the site. Another recent project worth mentioning is the Strelo Garage. The Omaha Housing Authority wanted to sell the garage to a developer who was renovating the adjacent multifamily apartment building. The garage and apartment are part of the historic Strelo Terrace and are across the street from Chambers Court, which was formerly known as the Strelo Apartments. The environmental review process discovered the potential presence of an underground storage tank in front of the garage. The EPA provided a TBA grant to assess the site and remove the underground storage tank. The property was then sold to the developer. So let's take a brief look at brownfields and sustainability. I chose to take a holistic view when considering sustainability, so some of the items on this slide may seem unusual. All of the items on this slide are tied to recent brownfield redevelopment in Omaha. In summation, let me say that Omaha has taken giant strides towards reinventing itself, and brownfield redevelopment was and will continue to be a major part of our future. Thank you for watching this presentation. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or comments.